April 2, 2025. A day etched in the annals of economic history, a day dubbed Liberation Day by President Trump himself. But liberation for whom? Certainly not for the American farmers staring down the barrel of financial ruin, not for the auto workers facing imminent layoffs, and certainly not for the international community watching with bated breath as the specter of a trade war loomed large. This was the day Trump announced sweeping reciprocal tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, two of America's closest trading partners. The news reverberated across the globe, sending shockwaves through the financial markets and igniting a firestorm of controversy. The president, however, remained undeterred, framing his decision as a bold move to protect American jobs and industries from unfair trade practices. But behind the rhetoric, a more complex and concerning reality was unfolding, one with potentially devastating consequences for the American economy and its standing on the world stage. This was not a game show negotiation. This was not a boardroom power play. This was the global economy, a delicate ecosystem where even the smallest tremor could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. And with the stroke of a pen, President Trump had just unleashed an earthquake. The tariffs, announced with characteristic Trumpian fanfare, targeted three key sectors: steel, aluminum, and automobiles. A 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports, already in place since March 2025, was now joined by a 25% levy on finished cars, with a similar tariff on car parts set to take effect the following month. This was no surgical strike, but a full-blown assault on industries deeply intertwined with the Canadian and Mexican economies. The reasoning, according to the administration, was simple: to protect American jobs and revitalize domestic manufacturing. By making foreign goods more expensive, the argument went, American consumers would be incentivized to buy American, thus boosting domestic production. It was a classic protectionist play, straight out of the 19th century. But the reality of 21st century globalization was far more complicated. The North American auto industry, for instance, was a highly integrated ecosystem, with parts crossing borders multiple times during the manufacturing process. The tariffs, far from boosting American jobs, threatened to disrupt supply chains, increase costs for manufacturers, and ultimately lead to job losses on all sides of the border. The response from Canada and Mexico was swift and predictable: outrage and the promise of retaliation. Both countries, caught off guard by the sudden escalation, denounced the tariffs as unjustified and harmful to the economies of all three nations. Canada, America's largest supplier of aluminum, wasted no time in announcing retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods, from ketchup and orange juice to bourbon and playing cards. Mexico, similarly, targeted agricultural products like pork, cheese, and apples. The tit-for-tat tariff battle had begun. What started as a unilateral move by the United States had quickly escalated into a full-blown trade war, with no clear winners in sight. The economic fallout was immediate and far-reaching, with businesses on both sides of the border scrambling to adjust to the new reality. Nowhere was the pain felt more acutely than in the American heartland, where farmers, many of whom had voted for Trump in 2024, watched in despair as their livelihoods were decimated by the trade war they had inadvertently helped to unleash. Mexico, a major importer of American agricultural products, was now looking elsewhere for its soybeans, corn, and pork. Prices plummeted, leaving American farmers struggling to stay afloat. The administration's promises of financial aid and support rang hollow as farm bankruptcies soared and rural communities reeled from the economic devastation. The irony was not lost on anyone. The very people Trump had promised to protect, the backbone of America, the salt of the earth, were the ones bearing the brunt of his reckless trade policies. The tariffs, far from making America great again, were tearing it apart from the inside out. As the trade war intensified, economists and business leaders warned of dire consequences for the American economy. The tariffs, they argued, would lead to higher prices for consumers, job losses in industries reliant on imports, and a decline in business investment due to uncertainty and instability. The automotive industry, already grappling with the challenges of automation and shifting consumer preferences, was particularly vulnerable. The tariffs, experts warned, could lead to the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs, not just in manufacturing, but also in related sectors like dealerships, logistics, and maintenance. The stock market, a bellwether of investor confidence, reflected the growing anxiety, with major indices experiencing significant declines. The specter of recession, once a distant possibility, was now looming large, casting a long shadow over the American economy. Section 6, The Beautiful Game Turns Ugly International Events Caught in the Crossfire. The escalating trade war wasn't just an economic crisis, it was also a diplomatic disaster. Relations between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, once characterized by cooperation and mutual respect, had plummeted to new lows. The special relationship between the US and Canada in particular seemed irrevocably damaged by Trump's repeated insults and aggressive rhetoric. The fallout from this diplomatic row extended far beyond the realm of trade. The 2026 World Cup, set to be jointly hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, was now shrouded in uncertainty. The tournament, intended to be a celebration of North American unity and sporting excellence, was at risk of becoming a casualty of the escalating trade war. Logistical challenges, border crossing issues, and the potential for anti-American sentiment threatened to mar the event. The situation was further complicated by FIFA President Gianni Infantino's close relationship with Trump, a relationship that drew criticism and raised concerns about FIFA's neutrality in the escalating diplomatic crisis. The 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, too, faced uncertainty. The new IOC president, Kirsty Coventry, acknowledged the need for open communication with the Trump administration to ensure the game's success. However, the escalating trade war and the strained relations between the US, Canada, and Mexico cast a long shadow over the event, raising questions about whether the spirit of international cooperation and sporting camaraderie could survive the toxic political climate. Section 7, The Art of the Deal or the Art of the Tariff. Trump's rationale unveiled. Throughout the escalating trade war, one question lingered: why? What drove President Trump to pursue this seemingly self-destructive path? The administration offered several justifications, ranging from protecting American jobs and reducing the trade deficit to combating illegal immigration and drug trafficking. Trump, a self-proclaimed master negotiator, believed that tariffs were a tool to extract concessions from trading partners. By imposing tariffs, he aimed to create leverage, forcing Canada and Mexico to acquiesce to his demands on trade, immigration, and other policy areas. However, critics argued that Trump's approach was fundamentally flawed. Tariffs, they argued, were a blunt instrument that often backfired, harming American consumers and businesses more than they helped. Moreover, Trump's confrontational style and unpredictable negotiating tactics alienated allies and undermined the United States' credibility on the world stage. Section 8, America First or America Alone, The Strain on International Relations. The trade war with Canada and Mexico was just one symptom of a broader trend, the unraveling of the international order under the Trump administration. Trump's America First foreign policy, characterized by unilateralism, protectionism, and a disdain for multilateral institutions, had alienated allies and emboldened adversaries. The trade war, with its tit-for-tat tariffs and escalating rhetoric, further strained relations with key allies, undermining trust and cooperation on a range of critical issues, from climate change and nuclear non-proliferation to counterterrorism and cybersecurity. The world was witnessing the emergence of a more fragmented, unstable, and dangerous international order, one where the rules-based system that had underpinned global peace and prosperity for decades was under threat. Section 9. A Tariff Tightrope Navigating Uncertainty and Unpredictability. As the trade war raged on, one thing was clear: uncertainty reigned supreme. Trump's tariff policy, characterized by frequent changes, threats, pauses, and shifting deadlines, created an environment of instability and unpredictability that left businesses and investors scrambling to adjust. No one, it seemed, not even the president himself, knew what the end game was. Would the tariffs achieve their stated goals of protecting American jobs and reducing the trade deficit? Or would they further damage the American economy, alienate allies, and usher in a new era of global protectionism and economic conflict? The answers to these questions remained elusive, leaving the world to watch and wait as the trade war unfolded, its ultimate consequences yet to be fully realized. One thing, however, was certain: The global economy, already grappling with a multitude of challenges, had just entered a period of profound uncertainty and risk, the likes of which it had not seen in decades.